You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, it's another one of my Behind the Vet Rehab Practice podcast, and this time it is with Priya Streram. She is from Singapore and has a practice called Vet Rehab. Before I dive into my conversation with Priya, a quick word from our sponsors. PulseVet are the global leaders in veterinary shockwave technology. They manufacture the ProPulse and Versatron family of products. Now, for those of you that don't know what shockwave therapy is, it's a non-invasive, high-energy sound wave therapy, and it can be used in both large and small animals, mainly to treat multiple soft tissue and musculoskeletal conditions. With over 20 years of clinical research, PulseVet is used by top vets and vet rehab therapists to improve the quality and speed of healing, to relieve pain, stimulate bone and tissue growth, and improve mobility for their patients. For more info, you can go to pulsevet.com. Now, in my conversation with Priya, we talk about the ins and outs of her mobile practice. And what really amazed me is she runs this mobile practice without a car. She established a really good relationship with a local hydrotherapy center, and this allows her to offer this as a service to her clients. Priya has great passion and energy. I really think you guys will enjoy this one. Over to Priya. Hey Priya, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Megan, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Priya, won't you start off by telling us how you got into the field of vet rehab?
So I was a veterinarian prior to becoming a vet rehabber. I was working in Melbourne, Australia for about 3 to 4 years before I started venturing into the field of rehabilitation. And my interest mainly was in pain management. I didn't even know rehab existed at that point of time. And because I was doing a lot of research on what options were there to manage pain, or chronic pain especially, more effectively, that led me to a few people that were already in the rehab field. And that's when I decided to pursue it further.
And so what courses did you do?
So I have a BBSc as an undergraduate, and then I went on to do CCRP through the University of Tennessee, and I did the IVAS certification for acupuncture.
Yeah, so you obviously use a lot of acupuncture now in your practice for pain management.
Absolutely. It's brilliant.
It is a game changer for me too, I must say. And my path was similar, being a normal veterinarian, just not happy with those patients that had chronic pain, the old arthritic dogs. And it wasn't enough just to keep giving them 30 days of Rimadyl or some non-steroidal anti-inflammatory. So I kept searching for other ways to manage pain. And that's exactly the same way that I got into the field of vet rehab.
Yeah, especially. And I think the game changer for me was having old dogs that end up developing chronic renal insufficiency. And then they will come off their non-steroidals, and then you could see actually how debilitated they are. And several patients of mine at that stage ended up having to be euthanized because the pain was poorly managed. So that's something that didn't sit very well with me. And that's why, like you, I sought out alternatives.
So once you got your CCRP and your IVA certificates, is that when you moved to Singapore? Because you're based in Singapore right now, right?
Yeah, actually, my story is a very interesting one. I planned to be in Melbourne, actually. I started studying CCRP when I was in Melbourne. I was still working as a general practitioner there. So this was in 2015. And my family is in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. So I decided that, part of me wanted to come home to be closer to home. But part of me kind of remained in Australia because I just graduated from there and I worked there and I had somewhat of a life there. So in 2016, this was a point where everything shifted for me because I decided, look, I'm trying to apply myself in Melbourne, but I felt that I was not really getting where I wanted to be because I had all this knowledge. I went for my 1 week practical. I came back and applying it was a problem. And I decided, look, if I really, really want to do this, then I need to take a leap of faith. And that's when I quit my job and I went to Austria, to Barbara Bockstaller.
Wow,
And I did,
okay.
yeah. So I was in Austria, the university there, for 2 months, and I did an externship. And from there, I found out that there was this place called the Soy Dog Foundation in Phuket, Thailand. And I did some volunteering work over there, and that landed me a job in Thailand. So that's how I kind of segued, through to Singapore, where I am now. Yeah.
Wow. So what is it like doing an externship in Austria? Because wasn't there a few language barriers there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I met Barbara. She's such an interesting person. I don't know if you've met her yourself.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, she's so cool. She's like this little pocket rocket, And I met her at the CCRP Presence Days in Mallorca. And I was totally captivated by her. And she said, Priya, anytime you want to come and learn, you just come to Vienna. And I was like, oh, so do you guys speak English there? She's like, yeah, all of us speak English. And then I go there and only the faculty members speak English. Everyone else spoke German. So thank God I brought myself a German dictionary. Yeah. And I actually enrolled in an online German course. So the best way to learn a language, Megan, is to just go to a country where people speak it. And I was not fluent, but I was able to have conversations related to physio.
That's amazing because, I'm actually learning Swedish at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, my father-in-law lives in Sweden and we go and visit regularly. And every time I go, I'm always reliant on them to communicate, although people can speak English there. But I sort of feel like I would really like to be able to speak the language. But I was thinking the other day, there's a big difference between speaking sort of just tourist sort of German or tourist Swedish compared to veterinary German, because the veterinary terms and all that are so different, right? So it must have been really difficult to learn all the veterinary terms, to have a conversation, an intellectual conversation about a veterinary case in German.
Yes, it was challenging. And so Marion and Kathleen Wittek, they were my translators. So I'll have this little notebook and I'll write down, okay, this word, what does it mean? This word, what does it mean? And I think the beauty about German and English is I feel like it's very similar. So for an English-speaking person, picking up German was not so difficult compared to, I don't know what Swedish is like, but compared to French, which I tried to learn in the past, and that was just, that was a nightmare.
So what was the highlights of your 2-month stay in Austria?
I think that brought upon a passion, because I felt like the point where I started studying rehab, I had kind of burnt out from just the day-to-day practice being a GP vet. And I was starting to lose my passion for what I do. And then I thought, all right, I'm going to give it the last shot, like being in this industry. And if I really wanted to stay in this industry, what would I want to do? And I was like, all right, I'll do this course. So I went to do the course and then I really liked it. And being in Austria, just immersed in the university space, learning space, and having just a completely different environment, right? Like just out of my comfort zone totally. Different language, different people, just different way of practicing with people who believed in what they were doing, kind of reignited my passion for what I want to do and making the change that I want to see in the veterinary field. Yeah.
So Priya, obviously now you've got your practice and it's called ARC Veterinary Rehabilitation in Singapore. It's a mobile practice. Tell us about how you set it up and basically like where you work, how far you travel, what days you're working and your hours.
Yeah. So It's a mobile practice, and so it means that I pretty much go to people's houses, but I also do clinic visits, especially second opinion consultations and things. They are done at the clinic, but generally I prefer to go to people's homes. I work Tuesdays to Saturdays, so 5 days a week. I have 2 days off, and I work. My first consultation really is between 8:30 a.m. on some days, 10 a.m. on other days, and I finish up not later than 7:30 p.m. My schedule varies, and I allow for that flexibility because it is my schedule. So some days I start early, I finish early. Some days I start later, I finish later. It depends on what's happening and the client's schedule as well. So I try to accommodate where I can. It's just me at the moment, so I am the sole service provider and I do everything else. So it does get a little bit tiring, but it's fun. I wouldn't do it any other way. And the reason I say that, Megan, is because the type of patients that I see are those that get really stressed when they get transported to a facility, or they are too big and it's difficult to actually transport them somewhere. So I wouldn't do my business any other way. I have worked in establishment before, so in a structured premise where I did only rehab. That was my first year in Singapore. And that obviously has its advantages as well, because you could see a higher caseload. Whereas when you are traveling, you have to allocate travel time. The pluses of being in Singapore is that it's a tiny little island, and getting anywhere, you know, it's easy. It's within 30 minutes at most. So I don't feel like that is applicable in many other places around the world. But here in Singapore, the mobile rehabilitation practice really does work.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is there a lot of traffic there? So
not during peak hours. Not during peak hours. I mean, not out of peak hours. Yeah. So there is peak hour traffic. So, but Singapore is one of those places, I don't know whether it's the same in South Africa, where businesses open after 10 a.m. So people expect you to start after 10 a.m. So that allows for the office crowd to go into work and all that, and then things start opening. So when I have to travel, generally there's not much traffic on the road. Yeah.
And so how many patients are you seeing in a day?
I can comfortably see 5 to 6, depending on the location of each person to another. But some days, Saturdays are my busiest. I see up to 8 sometimes. But the 8 cases that I see are not all house calls. So sometimes it's about 5 cases at the hydrotherapy center and then 3 house calls that I'll do. So yeah, when I'm seeing about 8 to 9 cases, they're generally hydro plus house calls. But if I'm only doing house calls, I could see 6 at most.
Yeah, that's good going. So when you talk about the hydrotherapy center, have you got a relationship with an established center where you're able to go and treat patients there?
Yes, I think that was really, really important, because I do believe in hydrotherapy. So I personally do the treadmill. That's because I'm more familiar with the treadmill. And there are many other hydrotherapy centers here that do just swims. So the facility that I go to, she has a beautiful center here in Singapore. If ever you do visit us, I'll take you there. I think it's really well designed, and the treadmill is in a separate room. So that's really important to me, because when the dog is in the treadmill, and if there's no barrier, sound barrier, as well as like a physical barrier, I find that the dogs get really distracted by what's going on in the pool and the traffic, passing through. So I really like this facility. It's called Canine Wellness here in Singapore, because there's a physical room, and it's very well soundproofed as well for a facility here. So the animal doing the exercises in the treadmill, or if I'm communicating with the client, there's not much distraction on both parties. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm in agreement. I think for me,
Yeah.
I'm exactly the same. I like to have a room where the treadmill is. I've seen a few practices that have it all together, and there is the dog is distracted, the owner's distracted, and the therapists are sometimes distracted. You know, it's just
Yes.
too much.
Yes, it's too much going on. But yes, so why? So the question that I get asked a lot from clients as well as other practitioners is, why don't I set up my own hydrotherapy center with a treadmill? And that's because, number one, space is very expensive to rent here in Singapore. You would rent a shop front for easily $10,000 to $15,000. I think, and the treadmill is going to be super underutilized. So I didn't want to waste resources, because there are facilities that have already been established that are underutilizing their treadmill as well as underutilizing their space. So I thought that it made more business sense to actually form a relationship with an established center and just go in there, rent the space and do the treadmill stuff for my clients.
Yeah, I think that's wise. You know, if I think about myself, one of the reasons I set up my clinic was because of the underwater treadmill. I felt like I had these patients that needed more, and my acupuncture and the treatments that I was doing just wasn't enough. And especially my neurological cases, I really wanted the underwater treadmill, and my hip dysplasia, cruciates, I knew that they would do better. So you've got the best of both worlds here. I mean, so you don't have the overhead of the practice. You don't have to run the treadmill, look after the water and all of that. So I think it sounds like a great idea. I mean, how does it work financially? What's the setup?
So I am actually very proud to say that I'm zero debt. I don't have loans. And that's because I guess, I don't know, I'm not the sort of person to take big risks. I don't even have a credit card. So I wanted to do, and I believed that it was possible to set up a business with the resources that I had. The first 50,000 went into, I guess, the education and getting my laser machine and the travel and, everything. It was about $50,000. And then to come here, I just used my skills. I used what I had to establish a client base and keep my overheads really, really low. I don't rent a car, so I don't have a car because cars are very expensive here in Singapore as well. But what works to our advantage is that we have a very good Grab service. So I don't know if you have Grab. Do you have Grab in South Africa?
Is it like Uber?
Yeah, it's like Uber, but so here in Singapore.
Do you Uber to your clients?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's so easy. There's certain parts of Singapore where you won't get an Uber really easily or a Grab really easily. So what I do then is I book a taxi. So there's Singapore's transportation cab service, I guess, is Comfort Delgro. So that's their official taxi service. And on their app, you can advance book your taxi. So if I really have to get to somewhere on time, then I advance book my taxi. So I know that someone's waiting for me there and I don't waste time waiting for a taxi.
Okay, wow. I was actually going to ask you, are you driving? Because I know Singapore in like the built up areas is quite hectic. It's quite busy. So that's great. So you don't have any overheads for car. So how does it work with the hydrotherapy center? I mean, do you pay them for every time you use the treadmill? Or do you get a percentage of that treadmill charge? How have you set it up with them?
Yeah, so I essentially only pay them if I'm using the service. So there is a treadmill rental fee and there's a room rental fee. So the room rental fee is $20 for 30 minutes, and the treadmill rental fee is $40 for 30 minutes. So let's say I'm only doing a review consultation, because sometimes, the animal shows up and they're not suited to exercise on a particular day, then I will only pay $20 for the space, and I just do a consult. And if the animal's going to the treadmill, then obviously it's a $40 charge. I include all the charges into my fee. So when a client approaches me, my fee is 45 minutes of rehab, $160 flat rate, 60 minutes of rehab, $185 flat rate. Everything's already included just for ease, really.
Yeah. Oh, that's
and
great.
So at the end, I just thought I'll add, at the end of the week, I essentially, the clients pay me, I pay the rehab center, or I pay the hydrotherapy center.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's great. That's a great setup. So I mean, like I said, you don't have to worry about the water and cleaning the treadmill and cleaning the room, and you can book the consults yourself. How do you know when they are not using that room? I mean, do you have a system where it's online that you can see that? Because that's one of the things. I remember, when I rented space from vets before I had my clinic, I would say, oh, can I use this room for this amount of time? And then sometimes they'd be using it, and I'd always have to be double checking to see that I've actually got that space. And then my client would come, and then the vet would still be in the room. And that would always be tricky. How do you work around that?
So I'm actually really lucky that Lynn has an online system. So she has an online scheduling system where people can go and reserve their spots or even request a slot. So I kind of know what her week's looking like, and she marks when she's using the treadmill and when she's using the pool. So that makes it really easy for me. But what has happened on some occasion is that they swap their time slots, and or I have forgotten to tell them that, hey, I've got this client coming, because I just last minute squeeze them into my schedule and they've got someone. So then, it's a little give and take. And I think, Lynn and I have a really good working relationship. We really understand each other, and we kind of, adjust our schedules to accommodate the other person. So the little things, obviously, if she's running 10 minutes behind, or more so I'm running, 10 minutes behind, then, she's very, very nice. And I really appreciate it, that she makes allowances for these little delays. But otherwise, it really does make a difference when someone has an online scheduling system, which you have access to.
Yeah, that can make things a whole lot more easy.
Yes.
So you guys must have quite a mutually beneficial relationship. I mean, I'm sure that there are cases that you need swimming that you refer to them. And I'm sure that there are cases that need acupuncture that they might refer to you. Do you guys refer to each other? Have you got that type of relationship?
Yes, we have that type of relationship. Yeah. Lynn's been around for a long time. She's been swimming dogs for 8 years. So she's got a very good network of clients, and she's established herself, amongst the pet lovers here in Singapore. So getting referrals from her is actually quite good, because the clients have built a relationship with her. And so when she's referring them on to me, they have that somewhat of a trust, And the same, likewise. So when I have dogs that just need swimming, I because I genuinely like her as a person, she knows what she's doing. She's very patient and very careful with the dogs. And her facility is by far the best hydrotherapy facility here. So she, what? I have to say this. So the way she's designed it, right? She's got the pool, and then the the underwater treadmill in a separate room. And from the underwater treadmill room, you walk out, and there are 3 separate shower cubicles. And the shower cubicles are divided. So there's the shower portion and there's the blow drying portion. So once the client walks in and actually closes the door, they shower the dog in the same area and blow dry the dog in the same area.
Wow.
So this is like so awesome, because at the previous center that I was working at, we didn't actually have a designated shower and blow dry area. And when someone is there showering and blow drying the dog and taking up a lot of time, it can be, first of all, very noisy. and, so much fur everywhere and fluff everywhere and too many dogs, So I really like the design of this facility and the fact that people can just go into one cubicle, do whatever they have to do, and then leave. No dogs interacting with dogs, no humans interacting with dogs and other humans. Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah, I love that design. I mean, we used to just blow dry them like in the underwater treadmill room, or we would take them like we had a little room around the corner, but it was sort of attached onto the waiting room. So like you said, it used to get noisy, and then you'd be having a conversation and you go, ah, in the background.
Yeah.
And then sometimes some dogs bark. I think it's because they've gone to parlors. So as soon as they hear the blow dryer, they start barking. Even dogs in the waiting room. So I love that design. It sounds like she's really thought through exactly how she wants it all to look. So there's great flow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. She learned from her first center. So her first center was a learning curve for her. And so when she got the second location, she's literally knew exactly what she wanted, and she's done a great job. So that makes my life as a person coming in to rent the space a lot easier. Yeah.
So if you get some referrals from her, where else are you getting all your clients from? So do you get referrals from local vets? Do you get it from word of mouth? Where do your clients find you? How would they find you?
So I have not done any online marketing, Google search engine optimization. Like hell, I don't even have a website fully up yet. So far, it's all word of mouth referrals. So I have a base of veterinarians that refer to me. One of them is the neurologist here in Singapore, specialist neurologist. So I get all my neuro cases from him. And then I get all the geriatrics and miscellaneous cases from a few vets, pool of vets around Singapore. I guess what played to my advantage is that a lot of my friends that I went to uni with are now business owners here. So, and they followed my journey as a rehab vet through Facebook and everything. So they kind of know that I know what I'm doing. So that builds the trust, and that, helped me establish a small client base. And then the other advantage was actually working for my previous employer, because he was a very well-established surgeon here in Singapore. And I did a lot of, meeting or interacting with my peers through them. So I got to know a lot of people through that channel as well. So that's really, Megan, where I get my referrals from. And then clients that are satisfied, they then go on and say, hey, there's this Dr. Priya that actually comes to your house. So people here love house call service because not everyone owns a car. And it's very hard transporting an animal if you don't have a car. Pet transportation, if you want to take a van to transport your pet to the clinic, it's about $40 one way. So just having someone come to their premise is a lot more convenient and a lot less hassle,
Yeah, I mean, it must be really difficult not having a car. I mean, I can remember when I worked in the UK, I mean, people used to come on the bus with their pets to the vet, Yeah, they would get on a bus and come to the practice, and then and I used to just be amazed, in South Africa, we don't have great public transport. So most people have cars. We do have Uber. I don't know whether you're allowed to take dogs in an Uber.
No, not here.
I don't know how happy they would be. So it must be really tricky for them.
Yeah.
So, and I think even here, our clients love it if you come and do a house visit. It's a whole lot less stressful and a whole lot less trouble for them. It's just for us, it's the time. It's time consuming.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So do you have enough clients at the moment? I mean, have you got days where you're not full enough, or are you at the stage now where you're not really worried about marketing because your days are full enough?
Yeah, I'm not worried about marketing because my days are full. That said, the business does go through ups and downs. So obviously, when you get cases and you're seeing a case for like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, and then there's like a transition, right? When your old patients leave and then the new patients come. So there are moments where there is a bit of a quieter period, but I actually welcome the quiet periods because then I can kind of focus on the teaching aspect of the business, because otherwise I just don't have time to prepare the lecture materials or to record the lectures or, think about what else I want to talk about or what else I want to share. So I do enjoy the quiet periods because that kind of allows me time to work on other aspects of the business. But that's it. The downtime that I had was kind of like September, October-ish. And since then, it's just been full on. So yeah, I don't think the marketing really is necessary for me at the moment. And yeah.
Yeah, it's quite funny. When you're really busy, you just wish that it would quieten down. And then you have one or two quiet days, and then you're like, oh, I hope this is not how it's going to carry on. I hope it's going to get busier.
But from experience, it always gets busier. So you just got to sit back, put your leg up and just enjoy it.
Exactly. It always gets busier. So just enjoy that quiet time. So tell us about the lecturing. What lectures are you doing?
So at the moment, I have prepared a series of lectures with Dr. Beata from BAL, Veterinary Academy of Higher Learning, and it's an anatomy-focused lecture. So my target audience was actually vet students, mainly because one thing that I learned from rehab is how simple anatomy actually is. Because when you go through vet school and you're taught anatomy in year 1 and year 2, and then in year 5, and suddenly you're like, what's all that stuff that I actually learned in the first year? It just doesn't, I don't know, trapezius muscle, iliopsoas, is that even a muscle on a dog, right? So like all these little things that we get taught in first and second year that then become totally, you don't know how to apply it when you're actually palpating a dog. So it's totally different. I don't know what it was like when you went to uni, Megan, but I felt that anatomy could have been taught a little better. So when I did my rehab course, CCRP, I think it really did help me understand musculoskeletal anatomy a lot better. Especially because we really need to know it, right? Not all problems are joint related. So that, there are muscle problems and connective tissue problems and nerve problems. So, so that made me go, hey, hang on, I feel like I should actually make content for veterinary students to help them learn anatomy and remember what they need to know when they step into a consult. So COVID last year was a big bonus because I actually had time on my hands to do these lectures. And then I showed the first one to Dr. Beata, and she really liked it. So she supported the idea. So I went on to do 6 more. So there's 6 lectures altogether. I don't know whether they'd be really relevant for vets and experienced people such as yourself, because I think you probably go, I know all that already. But I think anyone new, vet students or, vet techs, vet nurses that are starting to come into rehab, even GP vets that are starting to come into rehab that are not very confident with musculoskeletal anatomy, I think that's a good start. Yeah.
I think it's always good to have a refresher of anatomy because it's the kind of thing when you're learning, you get up to date with it. And then if you're not keeping up to date and looking at all those, insertions and origins and everything, you can quite easily forget it. So I think that anyone would benefit from that. And who I think actually really is anyone doing a CCRP. So if you're like right now doing your CCRP, it's a nice refresher, something like that. I
agree.
It sounds like a great course. And I think, if I think back to my time at vet school, there really was a disconnect because you learn, I actually think that anatomy needed to be closer to your clinical work, actually. Like learning it in the beginning and then going through pharmacology and all the other things, and then, you know, eventually doing the clinical work. For me, the same thing. Although our final year, our 5th year and our 6th year, they did try and change things up. So we had small animal, basically medicine and surgery, where we learned everything together, and then we like brought in the pharmacology, and they brought in a little bit of anatomy. So it did help, but I remember there being a real disconnect. And in rehab, I had exactly the same feeling. It was just like, okay, now that makes sense. But, you know, I think also part of it has got to do with, as vets, I don't think we're taught musculoskeletal medicine. Basically, it's more joints. So it's like, if you X-ray and, you know, there's nothing in the joint or bone, then give it anti-inflammatories, right? So we're never taught like to diagnose anything soft tissue. So I don't even remember being taught to palpate. It was just move the joints and like find the joint that's the problem, or the bone if there's a fracture. And then if you don't find anything on the X-ray, well, then rest for 2 weeks and give it anti-inflammatories. And then if it's no better, do joint taps and all those other kind of things, you know? So like, I mean, I felt like we really were robbed a little bit of our diagnostic skills in a way. And I hope that it's changed now. I hope that it's improved, you know? And maybe it's just that I remember it that way. But I mean, I've spoken to a lot of my vet friends, and they're the same, you know? They just sort of, it was very joint focused. It's like it was sort of like if you didn't find something on the X-ray, now what?
That's right.
Hope. And often, if you think about it, I mean, how often are there incidental findings on X-rays? So you find something that's actually completely unrelated. It's not actually causing the problem, but you see it there, so then it must be that. Yeah. All right, cool. So for those of you that are interested in that applied anatomy course, I will put the URL in the description.
Oh, cheers.
So are you doing any other lecturing? So are you lecturing vets in your area?
Yeah, so like the whole teaching thing started, I think, after I finished CCRP in 2017. And that was the first year that the CCRP was introduced in Australia. So we held it in Brisbane. And I guess Dr. Beata asked if I wanted to tutor, to be one of the tutors in the breakout groups. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'll totally love that. I'll be honored to do that. And that's how it started, because I did really well in my exams, and Dr. Millis was happy with even the practical part. And the feedback from that group was really good on teaching. And then I realized that teaching was actually something that came quite naturally to me. I think mainly because I'm a very poor learner. Like, I'm a bad student. I am a really bad student. Mainly because it takes me a long time to actually understand something. I think it's because like I need to actually break things down into little pieces, and then finally go, oh, big picture. All right, great. Now I understand. And so when people struggle with a concept, I totally get it, because I've been there, right? So that makes me a better teacher, because I kind of know, oh yeah, I know what you'd be palpating or what you'd be thinking. So actually this is this and this is that. And so that's what the students' feedback was like, oh, okay, she really explains things very thoroughly. Because I really learned I really teach based on my been there, done that. I'm the dumb one who made all those mistakes before. So so that's how the teaching thing actually started even. And once I came back to Asia, definitely Asia is a really cool market actually. Mainly because I feel vets here, they're really super open to different ideas and different concepts. Like, you know, in Australia, if I were to say to a regular veterinarian, oh, do you want to try acupuncture for pain relief? Or do you want to try laser therapy? They were like, nah, man, that's just woo-woo. It's not real. There's where is the science behind it? Whereas here in Asia, people are like, oh, laser therapy, that's cool. What is it? What's it like? And they're really very open to different ways of practicing medicine. And of course, I think a lot of it is also cultural because, Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, the traditional therapies are very embedded in our culture here. So obviously people will turn to these things even for the animals. So I guess acceptance is much better, I would say. So then comes the question of cost, because obviously here in Asia, it's a bit hard for veterinarians to have access to really high quality courses like the CCRP or the CRI, just the cost barrier. And I feel sad, right? Like, why should money be a limitation to the knowledge that you could get? So then I had the privilege of meeting the Integrative Veterinary Association director in Indonesia. And she was like, hey, doc, do you want to actually do a continuing veterinary education course for our vets, part of our faculty? And so I said, all right, sure. And that's how the first Smart Program Asia, I call it, started. And it was really fun. We are kind of in the process of actually expanding, if you want, into Malaysia. But at the moment, because I'm so focused on the business here, we just finished off with the first batch, and we're kind of like on hold to see what happens next with the COVID situation and the travel and all this kind of stuff. So so that's on hold for a sec. But it was a really good, really fun experience, actually.
Yeah, it's really exciting. You talk about the Singapore market. I mean, I've seen in the last sort of year to 2 years a real growth in that area. And we've seen a lot of members on Online Pet Health coming from Singapore and people coming into our Facebook groups and into our community. So it's definitely an area that's growing. So keep up with what you're doing.
Thanks.
That you're doing is helping. The more we create awareness about vet rehab all over the world, that's the best thing for our profession.
Yes, exactly. Best thing for the patients. I mean, I think rehab should be part of veterinary curriculum. I don't know whether it will ever be, but we learn so much about medicine and managing pain with medication, but we don't learn anything about integrative therapies, which I think if you even thinking about what does it take for tissues to heal? I never, ever thought about that, Megan. And it comes down to diet. Like, what is the animal eating? If it's not eating the right diet, how is it going to heal, right? So, and I'm pumping this dog full of non-steroidals and managing the inflammation, but I'm not doing anything about the source of the problem. So, it's about changing your mentality, and then not to say that rehab cures everything, it doesn't, but I think in the right cases, it makes a huge difference to the quality of life of the animal. So hopefully
it is becoming integrated in more vet universities. But us, us vet rehabbers all over the world, we just got to keep sharing our knowledge, getting out there, talking and speaking, getting on Facebook Lives and doing whatever we can just to create awareness about rehabilitation. Right. And we've got a great community. So guys, keep up with everything that you're all doing. I love seeing all the Facebook Lives, and I love seeing everyone from all over the world educating pet owners and vets out there and other pet professionals about what we do. We got to just keep
I think you've done a great job with the online pet health community. It's one of the best on Facebook. And it's my go-to, when I need some guidance as well. So well done, Megan.
Thank you. So Priya, if you look back, is there anything else that you would do differently? So is there anything that you would change looking back over the way in which you've studied, how you set up your practice now?
No, I don't think I would change anything. I think I've learned so much from. I'm not the most practical or strategic person. So, like, if you ask me, Priya, what is your vision? I can tell you what my vision is. But if you ask me, all right, what objective steps do you need to take to get to where you want to go? I am like, I don't know. So that's kind of like my downfall. I kind of like go based on how I feel and what I get drawn to or what fascinates me. So I just kind of like one step at a time, and somehow, the big picture just sorts itself out. So I don't think I would have done anything differently. I think all through the entire journey, which started in 2015, I've learned something that has helped me be a better practitioner, be a better person, understand myself and what I like better. So I don't think, but one thing that I guess the best decision I made was to not take up a massive loan and to go mobile, use the resources that I already have to start what I want to do.
Yeah. Great advice. Priya, it's been so lovely chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. And good luck with everything that you're doing there, all your educating and your mobile practice.
Thank you.
It goes from strength to strength.
Thanks, Megan. Lovely chatting with you as well. Thanks for having me here.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Stevie. Bye. Is it Stevie or Kitty?
Stevie.
Yeah.
Stevie. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, please hit the subscribe button so you get notified every time I load a new podcast. I'm here every week talking to vet rehab therapists from all over the world about veterinary rehabilitation. For more information about continuing education for vet rehab therapists that you can do online, you can go to onlinepethealth.com. I'd like to thank you for listening to this podcast and, of course, thank our sponsors, Pulse Vet. We thank them for their commitment to their mission to improve the quality of life of the animals that we all love by developing, validating, and providing advanced shockwave therapy at the highest level of support and service. Remember, you can reach them at pulsevet.com or info@pulsevet.com. See you all next week.